What's going on, guys? This is Kevin Zwicker from Fast Count, and this is your Evolution 2 post show. Coming into this weekend, I thought it was very important that the ladies were able to come out here and deliver a high quality show, because it felt as if coming in that, the expectations were kind of low. This has been a very long and tenuous wrestling weekend. Of course, yesterday you had NXT and you had AEW All In. So it felt as if both companies were kind of vying for and fighting for the wrestling fans' attention and to produce a show that people were going to come away speaking about the most, right? And I think the ladies going in tonight, they really delivered from top to bottom. I think every single match hit pretty hard. It just matters to your view who hit the hardest. But I think the show was very entertaining, right? The women went out there and it went balls to the wall. You could tell going into this match that it's very important, not match, to the show. It was very important for all the ladies involved. This was 7 years, a 7-year gap from Evolution 1 to 2. And coming into this weekend, I really felt like this show was kind of a proverbial middle finger to AEW in trying to really have the last word as to what was the show of the weekend, right? But if you just take out the spiteful nature of the show coming together, I felt like these ladies were able to showcase what they do and really establish themselves as the best women's division in all of professional wrestling, at least in North America, right? Guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. A lot of these matches were kind of thrown together, right? Both of the women's world title matches were thrown together. Trish Stratus versus Tiffany Stratton and Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley. But everybody on the show really was able to come out here and have a signature moment, especially the new age women, the women in NXT and Stephanie McCure, who is obviously, one of the most hottest acts in the company at the moment. I really feel as if she is maybe the 1B to Rhea Ripley's 1A as the biggest name in the women's division currently at the moment. And she was able to get her moment by winning that battle royal tonight. This was a pretty compact show. We only had about 6 or 7 matches, which is great. It is a nice palate cleanser after what happened yesterday with All In, where it was a 7-hour marathon show. I don't know. I think we've kind of forgotten, the fact, when WrestleMania was a one-night event that we were regularly seeing once a year, these 6-7 hour shows. And I said this in my All In, post show, I don't think that any human being should be able and should sit there and watch a show that long. If there is a possibility to where we're able to break these shows into 2 nights, please, for the love of God, do it. This was a great show. Right? We're going to start from the beginning. The triple threat for the IC title: Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyrie versus Lyra versus Bayley. This is a match that's been brewing for the last several weeks. I've enjoyed the story that they've been telling, the fact that they were able to tie in as to what happened at WrestleMania, where Becky Lynch basically shoehorned her way into that match to win the tag team titles with Lyra. Obviously, this match has 2 established vets like Becky and Bayley, who are made women in the company, but they did a really good job in showcasing Lyra in this match and showing off why she is going to be a big star in the women's division for the years to come. When it comes to Becky and Bayley, obviously they have this past. They've had multiple matches in the past, and they were able to sit there and deliver a performance to where not only were they able to get their stuff in and establish the fact that they are still around, but they were able to showcase Lyra and put a bright light on her and give her moments to where she was able to show that she can hang with these big established names like Bayley and Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch, obviously 1/3 of the very first WrestleMania women's main event coming into this. Obviously, Becky, she was going to be the one who was the most tenured, the most established in this match, but Lyra did her thing. And I thought the dynamics that they were able to showcase throughout the match, where you had tension brewing between Lyra and Bayley, who obviously coming into WrestleMania were thick as thieves, but with what has been going down between Lyra and Becky, where Lyra has really been able to stick her nose into Bayley's business and kind of, showcase the fact that we're potentially going to get a one-on-one match between them further down the line, possibly at SummerSlam, especially with the fact that Becky was able to win, right? Becky picked up the win. but they backslide. You saw Becky going down the ramp and she was celebrating, and you saw right behind her somebody have a fan sign that said Becky Hogan. Obviously, anytime, and it's so strange, anytime, when you have somebody who racks up a lot of wins, especially in this new age era where wrestling Twitter is just such a big thing, they're called Hogan at the end. You got in AEW, you have Mercedes Hogan, you got Becky Hogan in WWE, you got Cody Hogan. Everybody's a Hogan. I don't understand why people don't go with the Triple H reference too. If you guys remember that, Reign of Terror, that was brutal. Triple H, Hulk Hogan probably have the most political strength when it comes to leeway and doing whatever they're able to do and finagle their way into winning matches that they probably should have lost and the whole entire professional wrestling business. But hey, big time win for big time Bex. It's going to be interesting to see what her path is going to be heading into SummerSlam. I'm sure that they're going to have something interesting lined up for her, but it's looking like we're going to have a Lyra and Bayley going one-on-one eventually, because I think that's the direction that makes the most sense with all the tension that has been brewing between them two. Guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. We are on the road to 3,000 subs. We're getting closer and closer each day. So please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Next, we have Jordynne Grace versus Jacy Jayne. I like the fact that with this show, they were able to give the NXT women some shine, and this was an opportunity for them to go out and do what they do best, because as we all know, there's a big percentage of WWE fans who only watch the main roster show and are not familiar with what goes down on NXT. So this was an opportunity for them to broaden their horizons and perform in front of people who may not normally see what they do. Jordynne Grace, she's obviously a big name that has come into WWE since the Royal Rumble. She's somebody who has been established when it comes to the impact that she was able to make in TNA. She's been able to do her thing in NXT so far. She's one of the big names that they have signed in recent times. And she was paired off with Blake Monroe, formerly known as Mariah May, to have her back in this match. And you knew as soon as that was going to go down that something was going to be involved when it comes to the shenanigans, right? And we got shenanigans. We had Jacy Jayne, the NXT Women's Champion, flanked by her fatal influence partners. So you had Blake Monroe neutralizing them, but the match itself was pretty solid, right? I thought Jordynne Grace, somebody who has been doing this for a long time, she's able to showcase the strength that she has. Jacy Jayne, somebody who got that big-time win over Stephanie McCure to win the NXT Championship, was able to show what she was able to do. The difference in speed and strength was showcased throughout this match. I thought that Jordynne did her thing. Jacy also did her thing. The pivotal moment of this match was you had Jordynne running the ropes, looked as if she was about to win the match, but we saw Blake Monroe having the title in her hand, because earlier in the match, we had Jacy try to distract the referee. When the referee had her back turned, she was going for the title shot, but you saw Blake Monroe grab the belt from her, neutralize the situation. You thought for a second, oh shit, she's not going to turn. But when Jordynne ran the ropes, she got hit in the back with the title. Jacy Jayne was able to take advantage of that. 1, 2, 3, hit her finisher. Jacy Jayne retains, setting up Blake Monroe versus Jordynne Grace in NXT, which should be a very solid match, right? Blake Monroe obviously has all the hype in the world coming off of her AEW run. She's probably going to be the woman who is going to be the focal point of the women's division in NXT for the time being, because I'm sure that sooner rather than later, Jordynne Grace is going to get the call up. So she is going to be the focal point going forward when it comes to the women's division. Next, we have the four-way for the Women's Tag Team Championship. You have Sol Ruca and Zarya versus the Kabuki Warriors versus Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. And we have Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. The crowd was loving Charlotte Flair, which is a big-time contrast to the build towards her match against Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania. If you guys remember that extremely awkward segment that took place in Chicago, where it looked as if she wanted to quit in the middle of the ring, right? When all the crowd was giving her the shit, where we saw it end where she was like the Kaiser in my DMs comment that was just looked as if she was just throwing shit against the wall because she was just getting eaten up by that crowd. We got the exact opposite in Atlanta tonight. Charlotte was probably the most over individual in this match. They touched upon her Players Tribune article that she wrote. And if you guys haven't had the time to check it out, I highly recommend it. It really just shows you the human being behind the Charlotte Flair character. And I think you would look at her in a much different way if you were able to read the article. But this was a really solid match. Going into it, you had the dynamic of Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez, where it was that hesitation due to the fact that Liv Morgan is out. And you have this, kind of vibe where you have Finn pushing Roxanne on Raquel, and she's reluctant to accept her. But by the end of this match, it looked as if we were getting closer and closer to an eventual moment where she is fully accepted. Throughout this whole match, you saw their chemistry building slowly and slowly getting better. But where we got these other women who are involved, Soruka, Zara, like I said with the other match, individuals who most people that watch WWE don't get the exposure due to the fact that they don't watch NXT. They had their moments to show what they're able to do. Roxanne Perez and Raquel were able to pick up the win. Throughout this match, Raquel, she looked like a wrecking ball. Earlier this week, we had Kevin Nash on his podcast talk about Raquel, and he said that, he wanted her to work bigger. Roxanne, she is compared to Big Daddy Cool, Big Diesel on a regular basis. Her partnership with Liv Morgan was always compared to Shawn Michaels and Diesel. So the fact that you had the real Diesel, the original Diesel, say that about her, and then she was able to take it in stride. She's like, if he is talking about I need to work bigger, then that's something that I need to do better. He is one of the OGs when it comes to working bigger, and I'd be, crazy not to take his advice, especially with the fact that they're compared to each other so often. That was nice for her to gracefully accept the advice from the OG. And they were able to pick up the win. By the end of it, you saw the fact that Raquel was letting her guard down a little bit. This is obviously going to lead to a much more interesting path heading into SummerSlam. So I like that match the most so far. Next, we get into Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus. Guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know, guys. Trish versus Tiffany. This is a match that was thrown together, right? Like I talked about at the beginning, like the other world title match. But it's always good to see Trish. Trish is, and you saw on commentary, I think it was Wade Barrett who compared her to Goldberg, who we saw last night. The difference between Trish and Goldberg, outside of the fact that Trish is much more pleasant on the eyes, is Trish can actually go, right? I know Goldberg went 14 minutes last night, which is the equivalent of a 60-man Iron Man match for other wrestlers. But there's never been a time where Trish has been this one-trick pony when it comes to her in-ring ability, in my mind. This is a very solid match from Trish Stratus, right? She was able to show, her vintage moveset that we've known from back in the day. Her and Tiffany had some very good chemistry. This match lasted probably close to 15 minutes max, but not every single great match needs to be this 45-minute burner. I enjoyed every second of it. Trish Stratus, she showed off the fact that she still has it. Tiffany Stratton picked up the win, which is very obvious as to what should have happened, and that's exactly what we have happened. Trish Stratus was able to wrestle in front of her kids, which is, I'm sure, is a thrill for her every single time that she's able to do this. After the match, we saw Trish Stratus get a standing ovation from the crowd. Not sure if this is Trish's last match. Every match that Trish has could potentially be her last match, but it was good to see Trish. Trish is one of the all-time greats. I'm sure, just like everybody else, she was my childhood crush as well, just like majority of you guys watching this. So it was nice to see Chip and Tiffany Stratton and Trish have their one-on-one match. Tiffany picked up the win. Trish passed the torch. Enjoyable match, right? Even though it was thrown together storyline-wise, when the bell rung, I feel like it was a very satisfying match, right? Sometimes with these matches, the build isn't the greatest, but hey, what can you do, right? The card from the beginning had to be just ripped into shreds. Rumor has that Liv Morgan was factored in big time to this card. And as you guys can probably remember, we're building towards that Nikki Bella versus Liv Morgan match before she got injured. So the fact that they had to rip this card off, and start fresh, you can give them some type of leeway and some type of excuse, but still, I thought that letting the champions choose their own opponents was just some lazy cop-out. But hey, It is what it is. Solid match. Jade versus Naomi. Now, going into this show, this was the match I was the most interested into, just due to the fact that the story that we've had brewing between Jade and Naomi for the last several months. I think that this is the most interesting that Naomi has been ever since she's joined the WWE, since back when she was a Funkadactyl. I thought that this character has a lot of layers. I know that there was a debate online, who has the best heel turn, John Cena or Naomi? And the fact that she's even in that debate against John Cena, who many people would put on their Mount Rushmore, says a lot about the work that she was putting in. Now, yesterday on All In, we had a hardcore match, Texas Death Match, no DQ. It's all the same shit, just different names, where a guy was literally dragged through broken glass, where we had a guy basically strung up with chains and choked out, where you had guys going through barbed wire tables and all of this, right? So there was no way from a violence perspective that this match was going to be able to top that. And I don't think that that was their goal, right? It shouldn't be their goal, right? But I thought this was a very compelling match due to the fact that you have Jade, who obviously is this action figure in real life. She is a real life Storm. And you had Naomi, who has that crazy strength. We all know that one person who that crackhead that's standing in front of Circle K, who it's like you don't want to get too close because you know that even if you punch him out, he's going to just raise up like the Undertaker. That's kind of what Naomi was throughout this match, right? Every time Jade was able to do something to her, or she was able to use her strength, whether it was hitting her with certain objects, putting her through tables. Jade went through a few tables. Naomi just kept getting up and coming back. We had the added dynamic of Bianca Belair being the special referee, somebody who is equally, involved in this, storyline trifecta. It added the cherry on top of this Sunday of violence. Naomi was able to sit there, and there was a moment in time where Naomi had these chains, and she looked as if she wanted to pull a Hangman Page, but Jade was able to break out of it with the strength that she has, and she was able to pick up the win where she hit the Jaded through the table from the top rope. Jade, who's obviously has this big time match heading into SummerSlam, she is the queen of the ring, and the way now that things are setting up, her against Tiffany Stratton, I think is going to be a very interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to that. This is probably Jade's best match of her career, if we're going to be honest, right? And it felt as if, every single week or every single time she has a match, it feels as if we keep on saying that. Like when we had the show in Saudi, her match against Asuka, people were coming out of that saying, well, this is the best match of her career. Now we have this match at Evolution where people are probably going to say this is the best match of her career. She's slowly but surely improving, and it's good that we're able to see that, in front of our very own eyes. In AEW, she was very much so a female Goldberg, where she just was this cool entrance with this great look, and she was able to just run through these ladies like nothing. But now in WWE, she's able to evolve a little bit more. She's able to have these longer matches. She's able to pull different maneuvers out of her repertoire. And we're slowly but surely seeing the improvement. And once she's able to just 100% unlock it, it's just sky's the limit for Jade. Because Jade obviously has the look. So Jade is going to be huge. And she's probably going to be even huger post-wrestling because, that's one of the main factors coming into that. She was speaking about, why she signed with the WWE due to the fact that it'd be easier to make the move into more mainstream entertainment, being in the more visible brand that's WWE. Guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Hitting the like button helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. And subscribing, if you haven't, helps the channel out as well. It's free, guys. Remember, we are like a couple hundred away from 3,000 subs. We're getting closer and closer by the day. So please. Next, we get into the Battle Royal. The winner of this would go on to have a championship match at Clash in Paris. All these big-time international shows, those people in Paris are going to bring it. The last time they had that show in Paris, I think that Jey Uso's entrance almost caused an earthquake. It almost caused the Eiffel Tower to lean sideways. That's how big of a reaction that this guy get. Obviously, with these Battle Royals, the bigger individuals are going to have the advantage. Lash Legend, Nia Jax. Lash Legend and Nia Jax were able to factor into the end of the match, but In the beginning, Nia Jax was just throwing bodies after bodies over the top rope. Lash Legend, somebody who's a part of the NXT roster, was able to show what she can do to a much broader audience. Lash Legend, a former WNBA player. Shout out to my guy, Robin Lundberg, who gives you the best WNBA coverage there is to do. She's able to do her thing. Coming into this match, I think that the favorite was going to be Stephanie. Because like I said from the top of the show, Stephanie is 1B to Rhea Ripley's 1A to who is the biggest name in the women's division right now. Stephanie, in my mind, within the next year is going to overtake Rhea Ripley just due to the fact that Stephanie is so freaking good, man. And I'm not just saying that because of her looks, but the way that she's able to do different things with her body and the maneuvers and just the whole presentation, and her being pretty doesn't hurt at all. I remember last year seeing her wrestle Mercedes at Forbidden Door. And at that time period, I knew of her, but not as much, obviously, as been exposed to her as with this WWE run. And I remember coming out of that match thinking, like, man, this woman's going to be a star for AEW. Was wrong. She's a humongous star for WWE. And you can't even really blame Tony on that. Word has it, and she's come out and said this herself, that Tony offered more money. She just decided to chase the dream of her being in WWE. And you can't fault anybody for that. But Stephanie, Lash, and Naomi were the last three involved in this match. Lash and Stephanie were able to come together and find a way to eliminate Nia. And Stephanie was able to win this match by hitting the Devil's Kiss on the ring apron. Lash hit the ground. Stephanie wins. And we saw a real-life meme come to life after this match. Stephanie McMahon comes in. She looks as if she's going to interview Stephanie for Cure, and she does. And before she asks her question, she does it in Spanish. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, I'm sure you guys have seen that meme. It was like that, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it. It was like, it's a picture of Stephanie McMahon, and it's like when you say "sí" at a Mexican restaurant. We saw that in real life. We see Stephanie in Spanish speak about how, that this is her dream to be in WWE, and she's finally found a home. And she starts speaking in English again, and she's like, this is hard for me because English isn't my first language. She said, but wrestling is my language. And she's going on to Clash at Paris to have a big-time match for the Women's Championship. I'm excited, man, because Stephanie, some people just have it. And Stephanie is one of those individuals who just have it. You can just look at her and not even see her wrestle. And you could say to yourself, like, this woman is a big deal. So it's good to see Stephanie pick up the W. Fastest rising star in the women's division. Like I said, within a year, I think that she'll be able to overtake Rhea Ripley when it comes to biggest star in the women's division. For some people, in some minds, she probably has already. But, hey. Next, we're going into the main event of the show. Io versus Rhea. I'm sure what happened in this match is going to have everybody talking the most coming out of this show. But going into this, I kind of assumed that Rhea was going to win. Because as we know, or if you don't know, they have a show in Perth coming up. And I'm assuming that Rhea Ripley, with the show being in Australia, they were going to want to factor her big into it. The last show that took place in Perth, she main evented it. So I thought coming into that show, they were going to want her to have the championship and she was going to have a big role. I'm sure she's still going to have a big role. But I was thinking that they're going to want to have her main event the show. But that was not in the cards. This match, and you can make an argument, that this was probably the best women's match of the weekend. And I'm including NXT. I'm including Mercedes versus Toni Storm. I'm including Trish versus Tiffany Stratton earlier. This was probably the best women's match of the weekend, right? We've seen Io and Rhea hook up multiple times throughout their history and throughout NXT and before, and they just click, right? The dynamic of Rhea being this large woman and Io being this smaller woman who's quick just really works well. And the fact that Io, obviously English isn't her first language, so she does the majority of her talking through the, her ring ability, I thought was great. I loved every second of this match, to be completely honest with you. They were able to do different maneuvers where it looked as if Io had the advantage. Then it looked as if Rhea had the advantage. It was very back and forth. It got to a point where the referee took a ref bump and they were battling on the outside. They were standing on top of the stage equipment, and it looked as if Io was about to eat a power bomb from Rhea, but she was able to wiggle her way out of it. Io was able to dive off of that and land on top of Rhea. They got back into the ring, and then we saw a moment very familiar to like what we saw at WrestleMania 31. We see both of these competitors exhausted, and then we hear Naomi's music hit. She runs to the ring. She cashes in the briefcase. She hits a moonsault on Io. 1, 2, 3. Naomi is our women's champion. She successfully cashed in the briefcase, and she is the one who will be the champion heading into Clash at Paris, heading into SummerSlam. And I know what people are going to say. Check her last name. She is a Fatu, right? But Naomi is somebody who really has put in a lot of work throughout the years. You know, her and Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, walked out of the company. She was untested. You know, somebody who only wrestled in WWE, so she went to TNA. She was able to show off that she is more than what WWE was able to present at the time. And she worked her way back, coming back to WWE with this character change that she's made. She looked and showed off the fact that she's able to evolve and not just be the woman who had the shiny, you know, light up shoes. She's really been able to sink her teeth into doing this character work. So I think that whether you're a fan or not, I think obviously she's somebody who has shown the ability that she was able to work her way back into the position that she's in right now. And it sets up an interesting dynamic. It sets up a match against Jade, possibly down the line again for the title. It sets up a match with Stephanie, which obviously I think is going to be great. There's a bunch of different possibilities. We don't know how Bianca's going to factor in this as well, but we get a cash in to end the show. If WWE's goal coming out of this was to have this show be the event that most people are going to be talking about coming out of this jam-packed wrestling weekend, I think that they made a really strong case in being able to do that. I think due to the fact that All In was just so freaking long, and we had this culmination of a 2-year story with Hangman winning the championship, I think that it was going to be nearly impossible for WWE to be the show that's coming out, you know, this weekend that had the most talked about. But this is a very solid event. And for me, I know there's a lot of tribalism in professional wrestling, but if you really just kind of take a step back and look at things, they're two very different products. You know, we saw WWE's version of a hardcore match with Jade and Naomi, and we saw AEW's version of a hardcore match with Mox and Hangman. They're just two completely different things. So for me, it's easy to enjoy both, and for me, it's easy to cover both and be non-biased about it, and say what I don't like about one and say what I do like about the other, because they just are presented in completely different ways. If you guys remember, prior to the acquisition of Fox Studios, right? And Fox was doing their own Marvel movies, you know, Disney did Iron Man, which is great. And Fox did Deadpool, which is great. Two Marvel characters, but much different Marvel characters, and you could both equally enjoy them, right? I feel like that's kind of the situation we have with AEW and WWE. But enough about me talking about ending tribalism, because that shit's not going to end anytime soon, right? Guys, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. And always remember that it's free. Dave Meltzer's star rating, I thought this was a 4-star show. I don't think I've given a 5-star show since I've started this channel. And maybe that's just me being super hard to please, but it's gonna come eventually, right? But I don't think so far. I might have given a 5-star when I did one of the shows with Lumberg, but not 100% sure, guys. But guys, I'm out. This was your Fast Count WWE Evolution post show. Stay tuned for more things to come. Be live immediately following Monday Night Raw tomorrow. going to be live immediately following AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. Big shows for both. I don't know if you guys saw, we got this gauntlet match announced for who was going to face Gunther at SummerSlam. It has CM Punk, Penta, Braun Breaker, LA Knight, and I forgot who the other person was, but you got a big time match for who is going to be the opponent for Gunther set up tomorrow at SummerSlam. And I'm thinking CM Punk's going to win. I think logically that makes the most sense. And I think that's the direction that we're going to go, especially with Seth Rollins being injured, right? What a fucking bummer, right? That sucks, right? We got the storyline started up. You got this, him basically being, the face of Monday Night Raw. And it's just like, whew, gone. And it really felt as if, we were setting up Roman versus Seth at SummerSlam. And now it's like, what do you do with Roman? Do you just have Roman come out and wrestle Braun? I think that'd be a great match, but who knows? Everything is kind of up in the air. Back-to-back PLEs that WWE has had where you had a significant, key player be injured, which sucks, right? It's a dangerous business, this professional wrestling shit is. But guys, I'm Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.